Would you like to hear a fishy story? Well, the crazy part about this one is that it's all true. Welcome to the world of the land-based game fisherman. It's a world of big fish, blue water and rugged coastlines. It's a dangerous and challenging world, and one of sport fishing's last frontiers. At the start of each new summer, on the east coast of Australia, the cold green currents of winter give way to the warm fingers of purple water. The tropical current slowly but surely begins its spiralling journey southbound from Queensland to the cooler waters of New South Wales and Victoria. And with it, all the majestic game fish of the Pacific arrive as soldiers in the night, bringing the best of both worlds to anglers in Australia's two most populous states. Most fishermen only dream about catching big fish from the rocks and revel in the articles written in fishing magazines.
Hi, I'm Phil Atkinson. I'm a freelance fishing journalist, and the type of fishing that I enjoy the most is chasing big game fish from the rocks. Over the last 12 months, some friends and I set out on a journey to catch the largest game fish that the East Coast rocks could throw at us. And by the end of it all, the sights we saw and the game fish we caught were absolutely mind-blowing. But I guess that's what land-based game fishing is all about.
Early summer is big game fish time on the south coast of New South Wales, and if anywhere could produce a really big fish for travelling companions Grantley Gray, Jonky Hargis and myself, it was the deep waters of Jervis Bay, or JB as we affectionately call it. The area is rich in sport fishing tradition. It's the heartland of East Coast land-based game, and in the 60s its honeycomb sandstone ledges were the birthing ground of Australian sport fishing. It's a ruggedly spectacular piece of coastline above the water, but it's the underwater landscape that really makes this place special. Protruding kilometres seaward and with water depths to 30 fathoms straight off the rocks, huge game fish and sharks daily pass along the base of these sea cliffs. If you want to catch big fish, you put out big baits. A 2 kilo bonito may not be every rock fisherman's idea of a bait, but not every rock fisherman wants to hook the size of fish we're chasing. It was a 3.5 hour marathon on 24 kilo tackle. I landed this 115 kilogram black marlin from a Jervis Bay rock ledge a few years ago, using a whole tuna as bait. To think, the world's largest land-caught non-shark game fish was hooked less than 3 metres from the shore. So much for casting out a long way to catch big fish. If you want to catch more fish and stay alive, a bit of time spent checking the sea and current conditions is definitely the way to go. So here we were, at the beginning of our trip and already looking at green cold water, which had a 2 metre southerly swell pushing through it. Good water for icebergs, not game fish. There was no way we were fishing that ledge tomorrow. No fish is worth risking your life for. The outer torpedo tubes on the more protected waters of Jervis Bay seem like a much better option. The Tubes has a history as the world's #1 land-based black marlin producer, and there is a theory that the marlin come into the bay to rest and feed up out of the main body of coastal current on their trip south. Bucketing water is one of those jobs that we all hate, but we have to do it to keep the bait alive, particularly when we've spent half the night trying to catch the bait. Johnny might have his bait in the water first, but mine was the first to go off. And when I'm at the tubes, until proven otherwise, I treat every hookup as a possible marlin. Every fish fights differently. You can't be sure what you've hooked until you see it, although it didn't take long to find out that all I had on was a small but mighty angry bronze whaler shark. Unawares to many, New South Wales rock anglers put a lot of fisheries tags into sharks and game fish each season. With recapture rates as little as 2 to 4%, if caught again, this little fellow is of great scientific value, and I don't like his chances of being re-released. Now this is more like it. There's only one fish that can hit an angler with this sort of body punching, and that's a big hoodlum kingfish. Our mate Dave Lovegrove doesn't like to pussyfoot around with light tackle from the stones. Just as well, hoods like this one just laugh at the gear most rock fishermen throw at them. The power transfer on heavy tackle is incredible. Not just your arms, but your whole body feels the pain. One slip and this fish could pull Dave into the drink, and that's a place for fish, not fishermen. The shape and speed of a king makes it an incredibly difficult gaff shot under the best of conditions, let alone off the rocks, but Johnny does his job well. This unrehearsed teamwork between gaff man and angler was an unspoken bond we would have seen many times before journey's end. Even in defeat, the king still gets the last punch. A check on the lie detector is still no guarantee that a fish won't continue to grow. Depending on how fit you're feeling, one good fish on the rocks can mean the end of a top day. By the time Dave makes the 2K walk back to his truck with gear, fish and slime retarding plastic, he'll certainly know he's alive. But that's what game fishing the rocks is all about, getting out there and doing it. With the water temperature through the floor, it wasn't surprising to be greeted to the head shakes of a good-sized Australian salmon. Around these parts, salmon are a sign of cold water and an unwelcome bait stealer when chasing bigger fish. Although, on light tackle, they are one of our premier sport fish. Our stay had been the calm before the storm, and as a large southerly front pushed in, the prospect of hanging around for the weather and current to improve was too much of a long shot, so we decided to leave the south coast and head north for hopefully bluer pastures. On our way up the coast, we stopped in to watch the erection of a guardian angel ring. These lifebuoys have been placed at popular rock spots along the New South Wales coastline. The New South Wales branch of the Australian Sport Fishing Association initiated, and the state government has wisely invested in this life-saving project. Today, the anglers from Lake Macquarie Sport Fishing Club, many of them rock fishermen, are putting up this ring. Watching this almost solemn ceremony, my mind drifted back to a recent close call of my own, which really drove home the fact that the greatest safety device of all that rock fishermen have is between their ears. Putting it simply, if the seas are too big, then don't fish.
Yeah, the guardian angel rings are a great idea. I know of 2 people in the last week that have been saved because when they fell in, they were able to have a guardian angel ring thrown to them, and they were rescued. They were able to stay in the water long enough for the helicopter to come along and actually rescue them. They're a great idea.
On the north coast, getting to some spots can be really tough going. A four-wheel drive may help, but a good pair of legs is still the only way you'll get close enough to the water to wet a line. One cast for 5 slimy mackerel isn't bad going in anyone's language, even if they are only bait. This many baits should see John through till lunchtime, which is just as well, as it'll take him that long to untangle the bait jig. Piccaninny sunrise is the coldest part of the day and the best time for bait gathering, and if the tuna move in, you'll need every single bait you can get your hands on. Overcast conditions can be really good for catching big game fish inshore. It may be that they feel less conspicuous in the shallower water. Talk about underdogs. Here we were, a dozen or so rockfishers preparing for the day ahead, still unsure of what fish the currents would drag past our small point. But little did we know that this was to be the beginning of some of the most incredible rock fishing we've experienced. The first hookup came as a double when Brendan Rolt and then Dave Brown found themselves trying to stop horizon-bound tuna on light tackle. Both fish headed in opposite directions, which was just as well. If they'd stayed together, the shark that within minutes ate Dave's tuna would have made short work of Brendan's as well. On light tackle from the rocks, you've got to keep moving. You just can't expect to drag a big fish back to your feet. He's got a pretty loud fishing hat and a fishing style to match. He knows that time in the water is crucial, as the big body will already be looking for dessert. But half an hour later, a couple of sharp bumps are transmitted through the line, everything feels a lot lighter, and he knows it's all but over. All that's left to do now is rescue what's left of his tuna. Your local barber would probably call this a number 1 cut, short back and sides. The fish was a northern bluefin tuna, and that's one bite. Not from your little surface cruising hammerhead or whaler shark that surf beaches are evacuated for. And in the days to come, we could have shot a land-based sequel to Jaws, only without the plastic sharks. A movie experience that would have made one North Coast Tourist Council very nervous, I'm sure. By dragging fish like this back to the rocks, we'd unintentionally opened a window through which to see just how big the sharks are that often lurk inshore for an easy meal. The way things were shaping up, this little fellow knew where the safest place to be was. The next hookup was a really big fish with plenty of low-down grunt. It wasn't behaving like a tuna, instead doing all its fighting deep and in close. Predictions range from shark, jewfish to cobia. Someone even called it for an electric charge numray, but I think that was just to unsettle the gaff man. Whatever it was giving Grant Kime and his 10 kilo spinning outfit a real going over. When colour came, we weren't surprised to hear the gaff man call it for a big cobia. Grant had never caught a cobia, and the thought of such an excellent first-time capture made him go a bit wobbly at the knees. Just check out the situation the gaff man has to deal with. A 5-metre drop, tons of falling whitewater, and a cobia that, true to its heritage, just won't give in. But with a great gaff shot to the jaw, everything came together in the biggest possible way. Not a bad first-time cobia from the rocks. I think he'll be telling stories about this fish for many years to come. The landing of this cobia marked the beginning of what many believe to be the best New South Wales land-based cobia bite in living memory, and we were right in the middle of it. As I watched a boatload of divers sussing out the water conditions, after what I'd seen earlier, I breathed a bit easy when they decided to go for a dip elsewhere. When the next hookup came my way, I wasn't in the mood for playing light tackle sport fisherman. The way these waters were fishing, you didn't know what you were going to hook next. Rock fishing is so unpredictable. There's no end to the variety of fish and fishermen that are lured by the call of the rocks. 2 rock fishermen can be standing shoulder to shoulder, both staring at a small red float bobbing in the wash, one fishing for rock blackfish, the other for black marlin.
What's that, mate? Yeah. Right.
It's at the gaff when most fish are lost, and one great advantage of heavier tackle is that you can really control the fish when it counts most. The size of a cobia's mouth is amazing. In a previous life, this fish could have been a football commentator. Their eating habits are just as wide-ranging, and by the bend in these rods, I'd say slimey's were the fish of the day on the cobia's menu. To do their fighting, these fish went for the two-man game, and for a while lines of contact were dangerously close to crossing. In fishing terms, this is called getting smoked, and on 6 kilo line there's not a lot you can do except hold on and pray the fish stops. Just when Brendan felt he had it all under control, a wave lifted, then dropped, and it was all over. I don't think it was meant to be Brendan's day. All he can do now is lend moral support to Brownie, who's still working hard. Impatience can be the undoing of the light tackle game fisherman, and I'm sure at times you felt like screwing up the drag and sculling this fish in. But that's how you break your line, not records. In fishing terms, dreams can come true, and they have for Brownie as the boys drag a new Australian sport fishing record cobia up onto the rocks. No sooner had we settled down from the cobia chaos than Dave Lovegrove was up to his old tricks again, doing his best to get pulled in on heavy tackle. Just how close did Dave come to getting dragged in? None of us have seen a fish of this size change direction as quickly as this one did.
On the language.
And for a while it was absolute chaos as Dave struggled to stay on his feet and we struggled to get a rod bucket on him and clear the other lines.
Let's have a tea. You only go so far that way, you have to come back out. You just let it go, back off!
Dave never really looked like getting this fish. Even on 24 kilos, some fish are just unstoppable. When the end did come, the fish was just starting to realise it had been hooked. Maybe if Dave starts using lighter tackle, he might start hooking small fish like the rest of us. Sunrise on the rocks is always special to a fisherman. It signals the start of what could be the best or the worst day's fishing you've ever had. It's a great time to throw lures around. And for some, a time to get your knots ready just in case that big one takes a fancy to your bait. While I baited up and cast out a slimy, Grantley decided to put out a 1 kilo squid. Even the cameraman had caught big fish fever. This is what is commonly called a cube slimy, and if the heavyweights move in, even the tailor that did this will become just another bait fish. On calm, sunny days, game fish feed deeper in the water, and a bait cast out onto the bottom using a longer rod can be the way to go. No sooner had the bait landed and I was into a good fish. Back in the 70s, during the high-speed spinning craze, everyone used long rods like this. They sure make for exciting fishing. Rock fishermen have selective memories and forget all about the bad days. When they think about a day on the rocks, they think about a day like this. With only a light gaff shot, this cobia was in perfect condition for a tag release. To walk to the water's edge and throw back a 20 kilo fish, a fish I've spent years of my life chasing unsuccessfully, almost didn't make sense. But boy, it made me feel good afterwards. Of course, I wasn't the only fisherman to get a buzz from releasing a big cobia. Things had been pretty hectic, but still not fast enough for Grantley, so he took another break from the camera to hang over some burley and hopefully speed things up a bit. Here we were, only 2.5 hours from Sydney, 200 metres from a popular swimming beach, and we had 3 massive sharks, in the 300 to 400 kilo size range, feeding right at our feet. Talk about cueing your props. This has to be some of the most chilling inshore shark footage ever.
Oh yeah!
One thing was for sure, no one was going to drown if they fell in today. Bags not being the gaff man on the next hookup. With images of huge sharks replaying in my mind, it took a screaming reel to snap me out of it. I was losing line so quickly I couldn't afford time to unclip the safety rope before striking. Gee, I hope one of those massive Noahs isn't on the other end. The battle raged for over an hour, and the whole time I kept telling myself, whatever you do, don't slip in. The way this fish was fighting, I was confident it was a big cobia, which was a comforting thought as sharks and cobia usually get along pretty well. Surely rock fishing can't get any better than this. Another Australian record, only this time for yours truly. Ever seen a 6'7" Irishman in the Aussie bush with a 5-foot fish on his back? Well, you have now. I wanted this superb table fish officially weighed and iced down as soon as possible, and a few flies and fish slime weren't about to stop me. When it comes to fishing, just when you think you've got it all worked out, all the rules can go out the window. For most of the first hour of this fight, local game boat skipper Brent Harding had over 700 metres of 6 kilo line in the water, connected to a fish of world record proportions. How many boats went over or under his line, he's still not sure, but for a while things weren't looking good. Some boats cared enough to go around his line. Others just went over his line, unaware or uninterested in what was going on. Fighting a fish for almost 2 hours can be real hard work, and it's your right arm that bears most of the strain. One boat even obeyed the waving madman on the rocks, and came in close enough to pass under his line. Just maybe Brent might get this fish after all. He battled the monster to within 60 metres of the rocks and out of boat danger, where he finally got a positive ID. It was a huge cobia, well in excess of 40 kilos, and if landed, a definite world record. There's not much Brent hasn't seen or done in the heady world of game fishing, but what was going to happen next rocked even him to the core. With just minutes left in the fight, out of nowhere, under the surface, a huge shark engulfs the cobia.
That is a big shark.
How much carb you got left?
None. Oh, bloody hell.
The rest is now history, and although candid, I think Brent's words say it all better than mine. Watching an attack like this is a chilling experience. It's impossible to keep out thoughts of what might happen to a human swimming in these waters. Over the time we were here, we'd seen people happily snorkelling at our feet where the tiger sharks had been, and jet skiers and windsurfers where this latest attack occurred.
Big cove. Real big cove. How big is it? Oh, that's a big fish. Go in.
Hold it up, Brent.
The massive cobia's head weighed over 12 kilos. The whole fish would have weighed in excess of 45 kilos, an almost certain world record.
Good.
The greatest game fishermen are the ones who best understand and fit in with the feeding cycles of the ocean. And Brent knows that in nature nothing is wasted. Other small fish will now feed off the giant cobia's head. When the ocean tells you your stay is over, you'd better believe it. You can fight the elements all you like, but you'll never win. The Cobia-thon had come to an end, and it was time to push further north and continue the journey which started 400 kilometres ago at Jervis Bay. On this leg of the trip, our targets were northern bluefin tuna.
Water's coming under the sides of the doors at the moment.
To a rock fisherman, being on the rocks at sunrise is everything.
Johnny's in the back hiding. Okay, we've got all the easy stuff out the way, now we get serious. Here we go. Now we're getting serious. Trying my hardest to hold this camera still. Still slippery. Grant's doing his best to roll the car at present.
You do everything you have to get there on time. The rewards for making the effort to get away from it all and go fishing don't just come in the form of big fish. On days like this, catching a fish is just the icing on the cake. Up here, I always spend first light throwing a big pencil popper around. I don't generally catch much, but it's my way of tuning into the sea conditions and definitely the best seat in the house to watch the sunrise. When you put your first bait out and a school of mullet this size surrounds your float, it's like putting up a neon sign saying "Eat me," and that's exactly what happened. After one screaming hit and run, I figured I'd hook my first tuna of the trip. By tuna standards, it wasn't a big fish, but boy did it pull. I can't wait to hook a big one. In my mind, North Coast land-based game is all about northern bluefin tuna. At any size, they're a top sporting fish. The whole situation was a bait fish pressure cooker, and with migrating mullet everywhere, the tuna were never far away. Now this was the size of fish we came here to catch. Using an arcing fighting style, bluefin can tie you up in knots for hours.
Northern bluefin tuna. Around 30 pounds.
The temptation to go for an early gaff shot is always strong, but the last thing you want next to the rocks is a big tuna that's still green.
Here he comes. Stop. Hold on, Johnny. Got him there, Grant?
Yep.
There he is. Good shot.
In or out of the water, tuna are a spectacular looking fish and one of land-based game's biggest challenges.
about 15 to 17 kilo. Even my hand can fit down its throat. If this was a Spanish mackerel, I would not be doing this. It was a better hookup than I thought. I think we've got it. And there she blows. This is my pet hook. It's caught 3 bluefin so far.
Grantley's a fisherman first and cameraman second, and before the end of our stay, he did manage to get into the action. And I got my turn on the camera. All who participate in land-based game fishing know that the risks are great, but they also realise that this adventure can only happen during a season of one's life. As time moves on, like so many of the land-based game fishermen of the past, the unforgivingness of the rocks and the constraints of age and lifestyle may one day force us to look for fishing challenges in other areas. And so was the closing chapter on our journey. As we walked out for the last time, apart from wondering what was dribbling down our backs, it was a time for reflection. Within a few weeks, the cold currents of winter will start to arrive, and the game fish will move further north until the currents bring them back next summer. All that is left now is to start planning for the next season, spending those quieter moments thinking back on the huge fish and sharks we'd seen in the season just past. The more land-based game seasons you fish, the more you learn to appreciate the sights, smells, and even the physical hardship of a day spent chasing game fish from the rocks. Winter can be a very long wait, but the more winters you wait through, the more you appreciate the simple things in the season ahead. By way of postscript to this program, while we were putting it together, 2 mates, Theo and Mike, were at Jervis Bay pulling marlin like these onto the rocks. Those fish are out there, we just haven't learnt yet how to read all the signs, but have no doubt, I'll keep trying.